Hello dear grade 6 children. Today you all are here with me to learn science. Have you all learned science before? I am sure you all have learned science. Do you remember when you were in your lower grades, you learned this subject called ERA, Environmental Related Activities? That is also part of science. What did you learn there, children? Do you remember you learned about plants and animals and about special incidents in the environment? And I hope you have done. You must have gone out and studied the environment. You wrote about these different things in the environment and all. Do you know that even in this subject, we have to begin with something like that? So science is a very, very easy subject. Some children think that science is very difficult, okay, but I'm sure you will like this subject when we start to learn this one. So what are the things we have to learn about science? We have to learn about animals, we have to learn about plants, about the environment, and we have to do a lot of experiments as well, okay. So we'll start with the first lesson. So our first lesson is Wonders of the Living World. Children, what is the meaning of the living world? Now, living world is a world full of living things. Okay, so living things means, now I explained you plants and animals, they are coming under living things. And not only that, we are going to learn about microorganisms as well. So what are the special topics we are going to discuss under this lesson, children? Look at this. Characteristics of organisms. Now, organisms means living things. So, under this topic, we are going to learn about what are the special features, what are the special functions of plants, animals and microorganisms, okay, and differences between plants and animals. Now, I already explained you, plants and animals are coming under living beings. Remember children, even though they are coming under living organisms, living beings, there are so many differences between these plants and animals. So we are going to learn that also under this lesson. So let's get started. The environment. First of all, before we go to the main topics, we are going to learn about the environment. Now, what is the meaning of the environment, children? I am sure you all know what environment is. Now, the environment is our surroundings, including us. Remember children, you can't forget the fact that we are also part of the environment. Okay, so we are also coming under the environment. So, environment is our surrounding, including us. So, what are the things present in the environment? Just imagine that when you walk into the home garden or any other garden, what would you see? Yes, you will see plants and you will see animals. Let's say if it's a home garden, you will see bugs like butterflies and you will see birds. What else? If there are ponds, you will see water and outside clouds, right children? And what else you all can see? Flowers, right? So this is if you walk into the garden. So if you're inside somewhere, let's say if you are at home, now that is the home environment. Now that is surrounding, okay? Somewhere you are inside. So what can you see there, children? You will see furniture, chairs, tables, and you have the other humans, your family members are there, your parents, your siblings, right? So you will see humans. So you also can look around. If you also can go out of your house and you can see what are the things you can observe. So when you are inside the house, what are the things you can observe? Now the environment depends on the place we are, right? So if you go out, that is the outside or garden environment. When you are in the classroom, we are in the classroom environment. So the things present in these different environments also different. Okay children? Now we all are going to see the type of environment. We all can observe this. What is this children? It's a beautiful classroom. You all can see very nice and neat classroom. What are the things you can see in this environment, children? Shall we write down it as a list? I hope you will help me to write. So I can see, look at the things in this environment. I can see the teacher, and the children, the students, right? And we can see the whiteboard. There I can see a clock. What else? Here a map is there, a bookshelf is there, right? And desks and chairs. I can see a bag here. So we will write down it as a list. I will start with the teacher and children and desks. You all can write with me, children, chairs, and we can see a bag, a whiteboard is there, and map, books, and here we can see the clock and windows, right, children? So you can write the other examples as well. You can write, if you can see anything else, you can include them in your list, right, children? So this is a classroom environment, as I explained, very nice and neat classroom. And now we observe the classroom environment and we wrote down what are the things in this classroom environment. Now I am going to take you to the natural environment. What is this? There are 4 different types of environments. Actually, these 3 things you can see natural environments. This is a kind of artificial man-made environment. Now this is a city. You can see it's a very busy city. A lot of people and vehicles are there. What is this? This is a village, a nice village, a natural environment. And this is a forest. And this is a beach or coastal area. Children, what are the things you all can see in this environment? There are so many things in this environment. Okay, so even using these 4 environments, we all can make a list. So shall we make a list using this one? Here, because I don't have much space, I am going to write 2 things from each environment. But when you do this, look at this one, you can write as much as you want. Okay, so I am going to take the first environment. This is a town or a city. So I am here going to write vehicles. And there are buildings. So these are from the first environment. Then I am going to take the second environment, number 2. What are the things you can see? There are some animals. A bird is there, a cow is there. I am going to write, and plants are there. I am going to write trees and cow. Right, children? You don't have to write the same thing that I write here. You can write whatever the things you like. Now this is the second environment. Third environment, it's a beautiful forest. Can you all see how beautiful it is? There are a lot of animals. You can see there's a monkey, elephant and deer, and you can see birds here, butterflies, squirrel, so many animals here. And there are a lot of plants, mountains, clouds are there, right? So it's a beautiful environment. You can write as many as things that you want. I am going to write 2 things here from the third environment. Okay, here what am I going to write? I will write mountain. And I am going to write elephants. Now we'll move to the fourth environment, the last one. What is this? It's a beach environment. So we can see here the ocean, the clouds, the sky, and I can see here coconut trees, and a boat is there, and a rock is there, and here we can see a fisherman, a man, right? So, and some birds are flying over there. So if you observe, you can see so many things in this type of environments. We'll write another two from here. I'm going to write fisherman and boat. Now we completed our list. Remember, when you write down, you can write other examples as well. I wrote only 8 examples here. You can write many other examples as well. Now we will see, according to these things present in the environment, by looking at these things present in the environment, that we can group these things into other categories. Okay, children. Before we group these things in the environment under different categories, we are going to learn about this special topic, growth. What is the meaning of growth, children? Look at this picture. Now there's this child. What is he doing? He is holding a shoe. He looks a little sad. Maybe because the shoe is too small for him. What is this? What has happened? Now this boy is bigger than this shoe. He can't wear this shoe anymore. Why does this happen, children? You also must have experienced these type of things when you go from one year to the other year, when you go from one term to the other term. Sometimes you have experienced that you can't wear the same shirt or shorts or the same shoes anymore. Why does this happen, children? That happens because you will grow up. So we grow height-wise and we grow size-wise, and that is known as growth, children. Okay, so what is growth? Growth means the increasing size, height or amount. That is known as growth. So because of the growth, now this child has grown. That is why he can't wear the same shoe anymore that he used to wear when he was small, right? So when you go out, when you look at the environment, there are so many things that grow. Okay, so if we take an animal, now we'll take a puppy. Now remember, my pictures are not very beautiful. Okay, a tiny puppy. What happens after about, let's say after about few months, it grows bigger. Okay. And then what happens? After about a few years, what will happen? He will grow into a big dog. Okay? He won't be a puppy anymore. So he grows bigger in size, its height, its weight, etc. What about the plant? Now this is how a puppy grows, and humans also grow in the same way, children. What about a plant? Now let's say that if you plant a seed, okay, if you plant a seed, after several weeks you will see a tiny plant that comes out of the soil. So after another, like let's say about few weeks, what will happen? Few months maybe, it will grow into a bigger plant. Okay, so now we all know that if you look at the environment, okay, plants and animals, we all grow. So based on this factor called growth, the things in the environment can be divided into two main groups. Now we are going to learn that. Okay, children, what you can see here. Now here you can see a table. There are two columns. Things that grow, things that do not grow, right? Here we have the list that we wrote down from the classroom environment. Beside we have the list that we wrote down from that other 4 different types of environments, right? Now we are going to look into each part of this environment, each factor, and we are going to check whether there are things that grow and things that do not grow. Now I explained to you, children, when we take plants and animals, we all grow, right? What is the growth? Growth means increase in size, height and amount. Okay, for example, take this pen. Will this grow in size if you look at this one for months or years, will this grow in size? Will this become bigger? No. So it means there are things in the environment, there are some things that grow, some things that do not grow, right? So we are going to put these things that grow into this side and things that do not grow into the other side. Now you all can do this with me and you all can help me to do this. First example is given. Things that grow, child grows, and pencil or pen doesn't grow. I'm going to take this factor, teacher. Now teacher is also human, therefore teacher grows. We are going to write teacher here. Children also things that grow. Already this is here, but we will still write because it's in our list as well. Children. Desks, have you ever seen desks grow bigger and bigger? No, never. Therefore, desks and even chairs, they go to the other side. What about the bag, whiteboard, map? Do they grow? They don't grow. Bag, have you ever seen bags grow bigger and bigger day by day? They don't. So bag goes to this side. And whiteboard also here. Right. What about map and books? They must go to this side. And clock here. It doesn't grow. Now again, why do we divide these things into these groups, children? Based on the factor whether they grow or not. Things which grow we put into this side. Things which do not grow we put into the other side. Windows, they don't grow. What happened, children? This side is already filled. There are so many things I think that do not grow. So we'll move to this one. Vehicles, they do not grow. What about the buildings? Buildings also do not grow. I don't even have space to write here, but I will write at least 2 from there. Buildings. Okay. What about trees? Trees, obviously they grow. We learned that how when we plant a seed, it becomes a tiny plantlet and it grows bigger and bigger, right? So trees come to this side. What about cow? Definitely this side. And mountain doesn't grow, therefore it should go here. And elephants, they grow. Okay, and fisherman, human, therefore that also comes here. What about the boat? It's an object that doesn't grow. So it's very clear that if we take the things in the environment, children, there are some things that grow and some things that do not grow. Remember, there's a special term that we give to the things that grow. The things that grow in the environment are known as organisms. I will write it here. Now, it's a new term. Organisms or living organisms. Right? Living organisms also correct. So, things that grow are known as organisms. Okay, children? And things that do not grow, they are not coming under organisms. Now, if you have a look at these organisms, is there another way that you can divide these things in the organisms into groups? We are going to see that now. So, we will put this into another chart, what we learned here. Look at this. Things in the environment can be divided into 2 groups, living things and non-living things. Now, what are the living things? Another name for living things I already explained you, living organisms. So, what are these living things? Why do we group these things to living and non-living? Because living things, they grow. We can write things that grow. Things that grow are known as living things. Okay, children. And non-living things are the things that do not grow. Things that do not grow. Did you all understand this, children? I hope so. Things in the environment can be divided into two groups. Things that grow and things that do not grow. And things that grow are known as living organisms. That is what given here. When we take these living organisms, is there another way we can separate these living organisms into groups? That's what we are going to learn now. So before we go to that part, we have two other environments. Now you all can see this is a man-made environment. This is a house, man-made environment, artificial environment. And this is a natural environment. It's a lovely garden. So before we learn about how to group these organisms into other groups, we are going to write down what are the things present in this as well. Now I'm sure that this is very easy for you because we did so many examples for this type of things. Therefore, you all can start this to write down what are the things in these two different types of environments. I'll start from here. Okay. So here we can see a dog. And we can see a child, and we can see plant. What else? Television, I'll write TV, and chairs, a chair, and also you can see there's a bookshelf and books are there. Okay. What about this environment? What can you see? There's a bird, there's a cat, and a butterfly is there, a pond is here, right? And trees are there, plants are there. You can see some of them are tall trees, and some of them are bushes and shrubs, and small plants also there. They are herbs, right, children? So we'll write them. I'm going to write cat and butterfly and what else we can see? Bird and trees are there. A pond is here. We can simply write water. Look at this set of things in the environment. Two different types of environments, children. We have seen some of them are living things and some of them are non-living things. We will put it to two groups, living things and non-living things. Here we have the child, dog, the butterfly, cat. We have a large tree and a bird and the coconut tree. In the non-living thing side, we have the television, the rock, and we have some books. Okay, children. Now, you all have to look at this living thing side carefully. Check below if you can find out a way to divide these living things into other categories. Look what I am going to do now. I am going to circle this child. Okay, and I am going to circle this dog, and then the cat, then the butterfly, and finally I am going to circle this bird. They all I circled in blue color, right? So then I am going to take a different color, and we have here big tree and we have a coconut tree. So when you look at these things, children, what can you observe? All these things I circled in blue color and here I circled in pink color. What is the difference? You all see These two things are coming under plants. And what about these circles? They are coming under animals. Now even the human being is also coming under animals. Now humans are the most developed type of animals. Remember, so humans are also coming under animals. So by looking at this, it's very clear that living things can be again divided into, grouped into other two sets, that is animals and plants. Okay children, I hope you understand this one. So living things can be divided into two groups, plants and animals. So when we take plants, you all know that there are different types of plants, right? There are large trees, and you all can see grass like tiny plants. Shrubs are there a little bigger than these grasses, okay? And what about, there are some creepers that go around these big trees, large trees, right children? And when it comes to animals are also, there are different types of animals, right? So you all can see there are birds, okay, and there are other animals like mammals, right? Dogs and humans. What about bugs like butterflies and beetles, right? And reptiles are there like snakes. There are so many animals, there are so many differences in animals and so many other differences in plants as well. So I will show you some nice examples for these plants and animals. Look at this. There are some plants. You can see coconut plant, jack tree, bamboo, papaya. There are different types of plants, right? And animals, here there are only some examples: deer, fish, parrot, snail, butterfly, and there are so many other animals as well, right children? So it's very clear when you go into the environment. Now in this lesson we are discussing about the environment, okay? So when you go into the environment, when you look at the environment, you will see there are two different types of things that grow and things that do not grow, okay? And things that grow, when we take the things that grow, there are other things, there are other two groups as plants and animals, right children? So apart from these plants and animals, when we consider the living things, right, or living organisms, when we take these plants and animals children, apart from these plants and animals, is there any other group coming under the living things? Now we are going to learn about that. Now we are going to learn about the third group of living beings in the environment. Now you all already know that there are plants and animals as organisms. Now there's a third type of organism called microorganisms. So why can't we group these microorganisms under these plants or animal children? There's this reason. Now what are these microorganisms? First of all, the organisms that cannot be observed with the naked eye are called microorganisms. Now we can easily see plants, even the animals including humans. The specialty of these microorganisms is we can't observe them, but they are still there in the environment. Where are these microorganisms present? Now everywhere these microorganisms present. Even if we can't see, now here in air also a lot of microorganisms are there. In water, in air, right? Many places these microorganisms can present, right? So because they are very small, they are micro, they are known as microorganisms. Micro means very small. They are too small to be observed with your naked eye. That is why they are grouped under a different category called microorganisms. So if we cannot observe these microorganisms with our naked eye, how can we observe them children? There's this special instrument called compound microscope. So the compound microscope is used to observe microorganisms. So when it comes to these microscopes, there are different types of microscopes. Simple microscope is there. Now simple microscope means the hand lens. It is made out of a handle and a lens. Right, children? So when it comes to the compound microscope, instead of one lens, there are two lenses used. That is why we can observe these microorganisms under microscope very well. So what are the examples of microorganisms, children? Now we are going to do this experiment to identify the microorganisms. There we are going to learn different types of microorganisms. For now, examples for microorganisms, bacteria, virus. You will have heard of these names, right? Virus, fungus, fungi, right? These are some examples for microorganisms. There are some other examples as well. Remember, children, now in the textbook, there's this assignment given that you all have to make a booklet using the information about microorganisms. Right, children? So we are not going to do these things in detail in the lesson, but still you have to make this booklet regarding the microorganisms. So that is science, children. Now you don't have to learn everything from the teacher. Now good scientists, they observe the environment, they learn things from the environment, they read things, different materials, and they gain their knowledge. Good scientists. So I hope you all are very good little scientists. So you all have to make this booklet related to the information of microorganisms. So there you can include what are the different types of microorganisms, and remember, when we learn about microorganisms, some of them are very useful. I will give you one example. You all like to eat cheese and curd and yogurt, right? Do you know that in order to make these dairy products like cheese, yogurt and curd, we have to use a special bacteria called lactobacillus. So that is a type of bacteria or a microorganism. That is one main use. At the same time, microorganisms are sometimes harmful. Why? They cause us diseases. Viruses like Ebola virus, coronavirus, they cause us diseases. Right, children? So at the same time, microorganisms spoil our food. So those are the harmful effects of microorganisms. So remember, you all have to make this booklet. You have to read different articles or newspapers or different books. So even you can get information from the internet. So you all have to make this booklet related to microorganisms, regarding information related to microorganisms. So you will realize there are so many important things about these microorganisms when you do this assignment. Okay, children, what do we have here? Now we are going to do the very first experiment in this grade 6 science, right? So this is very special for you all. I'm sure you must have done some different types of small experiments when you are in your lower grades. Okay, now here also we are going to do our first experiment. Before we start this experiment, now we are going to identify the microorganisms. Okay, so before we go to this experiment, I would like to teach you how to write down this experiment. I am sure you have done experiments, but you haven't learned how to record or how to write down a certain experiment stepwise. So there are several steps of a certain experiment. Remember, children, now when you are going to the upper grades as well, you all are going to follow the same method to record or to write down a certain experiment that you have done. Okay, so the first step of writing down an experiment is you have to write the first thing, experiment. So under the experiment part, you have to write down the topic or what are you going to do in this experiment. Right, children? So here we have to write down, because we are going to identify microorganisms. Experiment is identifying microorganisms. And then we are going to learn what are the materials. What do we write under the materials, children? We are going to write what are we going to use, what are the instruments or what are the different samples that we are going to use in order to do our experiment. Right, children? So under materials we have to write down the things that you use in order to continue your experiment, carry out your experiment. So this experiment I'll discuss about today experiment now, right? Identifying microorganisms. Identifying microorganisms. So what are the materials we need to identify microorganisms? Now here I explained you earlier, we can't observe the microorganisms with our naked eye, therefore we need the microscope, compound microscope. Now this is the compound microscope, children. Compound microscope. Okay, so now in order to observe these microorganisms under compound microscope, we need some samples with microorganisms. Where can we find these samples with microorganisms? There are some places with a lot of microorganisms. For example, we have pond water. Now pond water doesn't flow from one place to another place. Therefore, they stay in the same place, right? So like stagnant water. So in that case, when they don't flow, when water doesn't flow from one place to another place, that type of water contains a lot of microorganisms in it. So we can take pond water sample. Or maybe we can take hay infusion. What is hay infusion? Hay infusion means, children, water rotted with hay. Now you can take hay, you can put it into a let's say cup of water, and you have to leave it for about 1 week. So then what happens when hay is put into this cup of water, microorganisms in the environment, they come and act on this sample, right? So when a lot of microorganisms come and act on the sample, the concentration of microorganism increases. So this sample, hay infusion, is rich in microorganisms. So here we can use two different types of samples. The first sample, water rotted with hay. So you can find hay from paddy fields. And the next one, pond water sample. Pond water. And what is this? This is the next thing we need under materials, right? So where can we place? Now we have two samples with microorganisms, and we are going to observe these microorganisms in these two samples using the compound microscope. How to observe? We have to take each sample into something. Now that is that. This is known as a glass slide, tiny, a small glass strip, right? So glass slide, or slide is also correct, right, children? So you can place a drop of this pond water rotted with hay onto this glass slide, and you can place it on the stage part. Now I'm going to show you these parts of the microscope in the lab, right? Next we are going to do that. So we can place this glass slide on the stage, and we can fix it using the stage clips, and we can adjust the microscope, and we can observe the microorganisms. Sometimes we can use, in order to cover this drop of water, we can use another tiny glass piece, very thin glass. It's made of very thin glass. It is known as cover slip. Right, children? So now you all know two steps of writing an experiment. This is our very first experiment in grade 6 science, right? So what is the first step of the experiment? The topic, or very simply we say it, experiment. Under experiment you have to write down the topic of the experiment that we are going to write. And step 2, materials. Under materials, what do we write, children? We have to write things that you use in order to do this experiment, to carry out a certain experiment. So what is the third step? This is the third step, children. When we write down an experiment, this is the third step, method. Now what are the first two steps? Experiment and materials. So this is the third step, method. So under this one, you have to write down how to do this experiment. What are the steps that you all have to follow in order to carry out this experiment? Now, do you remember I explained that what we have to do in that experiment? First of all, we have to take the water samples with microorganisms. Then we have to take a drop of these water samples to the slide. Right, children? Then we have to place the slide on the stage of the microorganisms, and we have to observe the microorganisms under the microscope. microscope. So these three simple tests are there in this experiment. So shall we write those steps, children? Right. Step 1. Take or obtain. Take a pond water or water rotted with hay, two different types. Pond water or water rotted with hay. That is step 1. Take a sample of pond water or water rotted with hay. So number 2. What is step 2, children? Step 2, you have to place a drop of one of these samples on a glass slide. So what is step 3? I told you there are three simple steps here. Step 3, place the slide on the stage of the microscope. And observe the microorganisms. Okay, children, take a pond water or water rotted with hay, sample of that, and place a drop of water on the glass slide. And the last one, place the slide on the stage of the microscope and observe the microorganisms. Now we all are going to do that experiment. Okay, children, now we are going to observe microorganisms. You know that this is our first experiment in the textbook, so we are going to identify the microorganisms. So what do we need in order to identify microorganisms, children? We need the microscope, because we can't observe microorganisms with our naked eyes, right? So what else we need? We need a medium where microorganisms present. So here I am going to use water rotted with hay, right? You can see it's brown in color. You can even use pond water for this experiment. So what else we need? I am going to use this glass slide. Okay. So how do we do this experiment, children? I am going to take a drop of this water rotted with hay. Okay. This is the cover slip. It's a very thin glass cover, so you can cover this water lightly with this cover slip. And you have to place it on this stage. Now this is the stage. This is where we place the slide or the specimen. Okay. So after placing it, you have to fix it. And so we have these knobs in order to adjust this, as we can observe them clearly. And here we have the eyepiece lens, right? So these other lenses are there close to the specimen. They are known as objectives. So I am going to adjust these in order to observe this one. Can you all see this on the screen, children? I hope you all can see it very clearly. Right? Can you see the microorganisms? In order to observe the movements, I am going to take it back and I am going to remove this cover slip. So because of the cover slip, you can't observe the movements of the microorganisms. So I am going to place the same slide without the cover slip. And I am going to adjust it again. all can see on the screen now how these microorganisms freely move. Can you all see? The microorganisms move here and there very freely. So children, now what you observed was a live specimen. But there are some type of these other slides called permanent specimens. Right? These are previously prepared specimens and they are stained. Stained means they have added colors in order to observe these microorganisms clearly. Okay? So we are going to see some permanent slides now, previously prepared slides now. Okay? Now here we have this slide amoeba. We are going to observe amoeba, the permanent slide of amoeba now. Okay children, can you all see on the screen now how clear this amoeba is? So you can, I hope you can observe it really well. It's very clear with the stain, with the colors. So that is amoeba. Another slide as well. This is paramecium, right? We will observe that one as well. Now all these things are permanent slides. Can you all see it now? Can you all see it on the screen? Right. Look at this shape, the slipper shape is there. Some hair-like structures you can see. I hope it's very clear. Now I have another permanent slide here. This is euglena. That is also another type of microorganism. Okay children, can you all see it on the screen now? With a specific color and all these colors, previously added colors. So in order to observe them clearly, we can prepare these types of permanent slides. These are not live specimens. These are previously made or permanent specimens that you can keep for a certain period of time. So I hope you understood how you observe microorganisms using the microscope. Right children? Did you observe the microorganisms in the lab? It was really interesting, wasn't it children? I hope you all enjoyed that experiment. That was our very first experiment. Right children? So did you see how to observe the microorganisms, how to prepare a slide, and you observed the slides of microorganisms. Right children? So now at the same time we are learning about what are the steps of this experiment. Now we learn 3 steps. The first step is experiment, second step is material, third step is method. We wrote all the steps that we have to follow, right children? So here this is the fourth step, that is observation. Now observation means what you all can observe when we do the experiment. Remember, observing means, sometimes we think observing means looking. When you see things, that is observation. Not only that, during some experiments you might hear things, you will smell things, you can feel with your fingers, with your skin, right? Those are also coming under observations. Not only the things that you can see with your eyes, but here actually we observe different types of microorganisms, and I hope you enjoyed the experiment. Do you remember children, when you were observing these microorganisms, the slide we prepared was not colorful. Why was that? I explained you that. That is because that is a live one. Okay, live microorganisms we were observing using the slide that we prepared. But remember, in the lab, as I explained you before, there are slides called permanent slides. Right? So these permanent slides, they are previously prepared slides, and you all can see these slides, these microorganisms or whatever the specimen with colors. How do you see them with colors children? That is because for better observation, by the time we prepare it, we add colors. That is why you could see under those permanent slides, you could see different types of colorful microorganisms. That is because by the time we prepare it, we have to add those colors for better observation. So these are some examples of microorganisms, children. What are they? Shall we learn them? In the textbook also the same examples are given. What is this? Now these are also those colored microorganisms, in the sense colored specimens, previously prepared ones, taken from the permanent specimens. Okay. So what is this, children? This one's name is amoeba. What is this? Now this is a type of algae. Okay, so this is a type of algae. It is known as Chlamydomonas. Chlamydomonas. This one's name is Paramecium. Look, it looks like a slipper, a shoe, sole of a shoe, right? It's a special shape. This is Paramecium. What is this? These are bacteria. Bacteria, you will know, it's very common, right? In the environment, bacteria can be found. Was it clear, children? So, we did this experiment in order to study, in order to identify microorganisms in the lab. Now, we learned that microorganisms also come in under living beings or living organisms. In that way, there are 3 different groups coming under living organisms. What are they, children? Look at this. Living things, plants, animals and microorganisms. Now, earlier we learned only plants and animals, but now we all know that microorganisms are also coming under living things, so organisms. What is the other name we gave for living things, children? That is organisms. Right? So, if we take plants, animals and microorganisms, microorganisms cannot be seen with the naked eye, but plants and animals can be seen with the naked eye. We will write that also here. Can be, plants and animals can be seen with the naked eye. But microorganisms cannot be seen with the naked eye. That is why we need a microscope. Cannot be seen with the naked eye. Okay, children, is it clear now? When we take the things in the environment, there are 2 main groups, living things and non-living things. Why do we divide these things into living and non-living things, children? Living things, they grow, and non-living things, they do not grow. And living things can be divided into 3 other main groups: plants, animals and microorganisms. And plants and animals can be seen with the naked eye very clearly, but microorganisms, they are too small, they are microscopic, right? So they cannot be seen with the naked eye. That is why we have to use a microscope in order to observe these microorganisms. So is it clear, children? I hope so. So you will have to study all these things really well. So you will see all these things are really important and really interesting. Now we are going to learn the characteristics of organisms. We learn the things in the environment. We learn that they can be divided into 2 main groups as living and non-living things. And we learn that living things can be divided into plants, animals and microorganisms. And now we are going to learn what are the characteristics of the living organisms, or what are the features, special features of living organisms, children. So in this one, we are going to learn 5 different types of characteristics. Okay, children. So growth, nutrition, movement, respiration and reproduction. You all learn about growth, but we are going to go through each characteristic. Growth. Now you all know, I already explained you what growth is. What is growth, children? So the increase in size, height or amount is called growth. We all know this. Remember we discussed about that child who was holding the shoe, right? So now we all know another thing. Living things grow and non-living things, do they grow children? No, they do not grow. That is why we divide them into living and non-living things, right? So growth is a common feature of organisms, and there is no growth. There is no growth in non-living things. That is the main way we divide the things into living and non-living things, based on the growth. Look at these pictures, children. Here they have given a kitten grows into a cat. Young cat grows into a adult one, big one, right? And plant grows into a, using a coconut, starting from a coconut, how a coconut tree grows. From the coconut, a new plant comes, and when we plant this one, we can get a new coconut plant. So, animals and plants. Children, is there any difference between the growth of these animals and plant? We all are going to learn that now. So when we consider the animals and plants, first let's take humans. Now we all know that from the time we were born, from a baby, we grow up into an adult. Now you all are somewhere here. Okay, you all are somewhere here, your parents are somewhere there. Okay, so we all grow. What can you tell about the growth of humans and other animals, children? Do they grow forever? Do the animals grow forever? I'm sure you know the answer. We all don't grow forever. Throughout the lifetime, we don't grow. Okay, we grow up to a certain level, up to a certain age. After that, our growth stops. Our growth remains the same size. Okay, so growth in animals visibly stops after a certain period of time. Humans and other animals don't grow throughout their entire lifetime, right? From young age, this is the childhood, and this is the young adults, and this is the adult stage, right? Now after this stage, humans will not grow further. The same size will be there. Like if they eat a lot, they will become, they will put on, right? But I'm not talking about that. The height normally doesn't grow after a certain age. But if we take plants, what happens, children? So observe clearly, some of these plants are very old, hundreds of years old, right? Some of these plants are still very young. So if you observe this growth of the plants carefully, you will realize they grow throughout the entire lifetime. Okay, children? If we take humans and other animals, their growth is limited. They don't grow throughout the lifetime. They grow up to a certain stage, and after that their growth stops, right? But when we discuss about the plants, they grow throughout their entire lifetime. This is one main difference between the growth of animals and plants. So growth in animals visibly stops after a certain period of time. But what about the plants, children? Growth is visible during the entire lifespan. Thus, growth is unlimited. So the main difference between the growth of animals and plants is animals' growth is limited, but plant growth is unlimited. I hope you understood this part, children. Now we are going to do an experiment to study the growth of a plant. So we will see what we have to do here. So this is the second experiment. Do you like to do experiments, children? I hope you like to do. Now we are going to do this experiment to study the growth of plants. Remember, children, now this experiment is very easy, right? So you can do it at home. You all have to do this at home because this is super easy, children. So do you remember what we learned about experiments, children? How to record an experiment, how to write down an experiment. Do you remember all the steps that we learned? We will see. What is the first step, children? First step is experiment. Step 1. Okay. So step 1, experiment. What do you have to write here, children? Yes, you have to write the title of the experiment. So here the title is Studying the Growth of Plants. What is the second step? That is materials. What do you write on the materials, children? You have to write what you are going to use to do this experiment. So here you can see some pictures. You can see here soil. Here's a cup. It's a yogurt cup. And what are these seeds, children? These green color seeds? These are green gram seeds. Right, children? And here we have a measuring tape. So these are the things we need in order to do today's experiment. So I am going to write down here in the blanks given here, and then I will explain what we have to do here. So here we need soil. Actually we need, children, wet soil. And yogurt cup. If you don't have yogurt cup, you can use another one as well. Small cup. Green gram seeds. And a measuring tape. Right, children? Now listen carefully. I am going to teach you how to do this experiment. So you all can do all these steps at home and you can observe, you can study the growth of plants. This is really easy. Right, children? So first of all, you need to take some wet soil and put it to the cup. And after that, you have to plant these green gram seeds in this wet soil. So it will take a few days for these tiny plants to come out of the soil. So when these plants start to come out of the soil, from that day onwards, you have to measure the height of the plant. Why do we have to measure the height? Because we are going to study the growth of plants. Right? So when you measure the height, you will understand what happens to when the time passes, what happens to the height of the plants. So you will easily see that height increases. Right, children? Not only the height. When a certain plant grows, we all know that number of leaves in the plants also increases. So you have to measure the height of the plant using the measuring tape. At the same time, you have to count the number of leaves as well. So for how long you have to do this experiment? Did you realize you have to do this experiment for about at least 2 weeks? Why can't we do this experiment for a few days, children? So in a short period of time, you won't be able to see the changes easily. So when you increase the time you observe, at least for 2 weeks, you will observe these changes, the height and the number of leaves. Very easily you can observe all these changes. Okay, children? So we are going to go to the next step of the experiment. What is the next step? Do you remember what the next step is? Yes, that is method. Okay, children. Now we will write down the method. Remember, before we plant these seeds in soil, we have to soak these seeds in water for about 24 hours, for about 1 day. Okay, so shall we write down the method, children? Okay, so step 1, soak green gram seeds in water for 24 hours. What is the second step? Yes, second step, you have to plant these seeds. Plant green gram seeds in wet soil. Wet soil in yogurt cups, right? Wet soil in yogurt cup. What is the next step, children? After planting them, when the seeds are germinated and when the plant is grown up to a certain height, we have to measure the height of the plant. And what else we have to do? We have to count the number of leaves as well. Okay. When the seeds are germinated and grown up to a certain height, measure the height of plant and count the number of leaves. When the seeds are germinated and grown up to a certain height, measure the height of the plant and count the number of leaves. Understand? So for how long we have to do this experiment? For about 2 weeks. Understand? So number 4. Repeat for 2 weeks, 14 days. Right, children? So now we are going to see this experiment in the lab. Remember, even though here I mentioned that you all have to do this with green gram seeds, in the lab I am going to show you how we do this using the green chili plant. So green chili plant, most of the time you can't observe the growth of the green chili plant. Okay? So it's good to see that one as well. You can do this experiment at home. I am going to show you the experiment done with green chili plants. Right? Okay, children. Now we are going to observe or identify the growth of a plant. So we discussed what we have to do. We have to plant these green gram seeds and we have to observe it for about, after germination, and we have to observe it for about 2 weeks, means 14 days. So what do we have to do here, children? We have to measure the height of the plant and also we have to count the number of leaves present in that plant. So here I have a chili plant, green chili plant here, okay, instead of a green gram. So you don't see green chili most of the time, therefore I wrote here green chili plants. This is actually about a few days after germination, right? This is, it's about 1.5 weeks old, right? This is more than 2 weeks old. So first of all, I am going to measure the height of each plant. So this is the measuring tape. We can use the measuring tape in order to measure the height. So according to the way I hold the measuring tape, you will see the numbers upside down, but you still can understand, right? So yes, this is about, the height is 4.5 centimeters. This is about 6 centimeters. So this is taller than this one. Right. This is about 11 centimeters, children. So you can see the growth, the height increases when the time passed by, right? And we will see not only this one, not only the height, we have to count the number of leaves as well. So I'm going to take the first one. You can see clearly there are 2 complete leaves, right? Tiny bud is also here, right? But 2 complete leaves are here, right? And this one, 2 big leaves and 1 tiny leaf present here. Okay, so what about this one? This one has, easily you can count, there are 4 leaves. So it's very clear that along with time the height increases and the number of leaves also increases. So when you do this experiment, it's better to use this green ground plant because its growth is faster than this. Therefore, you can observe it really well, right? So don't forget to observe it for, now I have here only 3 plants, but you have to observe it for 2 weeks, which means 14 days. Right, children, did you see the experiment? How interesting it was? Did you see how we measured the height of the plants and we counted the number of leaves using green chili plants? Was it interesting, children? So, observation. Now, what is the next step of the experiment, children? Observation. Now, do you remember the first 3 steps? Yes, I hope so. The first step is experiment. Second step is materials. Next one is method. And the next thing, observation. So we all know that under observation, we have to record, we have to write down, or we have to show what we can observe throughout the experiment. Okay. So now this is actually using a diagram. We can show what actually happens, right? When you plant a certain seed, how it grows stepwise. Can you see now? All these 3 steps, first 3 stages, we can't see. What is the reason, children? Because they present underground. Only when it comes to this stage, we can see it because it starts to come out of the soil, right? So only from this stage, we can see the changes take place in the plant. Now here these 3 stages we can't see, but remember there's this video clip I'm going to show you next. You will see. Now most of the time we can't see what happens underground, but in that video clip I'm going to show you using these parts as well, including these stages as well. It will be really interesting. So you can start to measure the height of the plant from like this stage. This is also too short. Okay, so from this stage you can start to measure the height of the plant, right, children? So here you can see by this time 2 tiny leaves are there. Here 2 well-grown leaves are there. Here 4 well-grown leaves and 2 tiny leaves are there. So you can easily count the number of leaves as well, and height also here increases. Okay, this is taller than here. Height also increases, right, children? So when you can start in like from this stage, you have to start to measure the height of the plant. And I told you when you do this experiment, you have to record the observation for how long, children? Yes, 2 weeks, which means 14 days. Right? So here we have to include all the information in a table like this. We have 3 columns here: date, height of the green ground plants, and number of leaves. So the first day should be the day you start to count the number of leaves. So day you start to measure the height of the plant. That's the first day, shouldn't be the day you plant the seeds. Okay, I hope you understand this one. So now here this one is not that long, but you have to record these observations, all these details for about 14 days, 2 weeks. So it will be very clear after doing this experiment how the plant grows, like its height wise, and the number of leaves also increases. It will be very clear. So children, I explained you that I am going to show you this video clip related to the growth of the plants. We will watch it now. Right, let's watch this, children. Look at the growth of the plants, children. Look how these roots coming out of the seeds. Tiny roots coming out of the seeds, and you can see how the stem coming out of soil and it grows beautifully. Look how it separates into other leaves. Now children, you can see the growth is really fast. But remember, this is a time-lapse video. It means now it is recorded for a long period of time, but when we play this, it plays within a short period of time. Okay, children? And now look at this plant. It has different shaped leaves. See how beautifully they grow. It's very interesting, right, children? It separates into 2 parts. Now look at this one, children. Tiny leaves coming out of soil. and you can see when it grows, what are the changes take place. Now see, the matured leaves, they turn into different shapes. Isn't it very interesting, children? The way it grows and the shapes of leaves. It's very clear that the growths are different in different plants. Now see, it's a different type of plant, children. Look at this. Now this is the green gram plant. When you plant green gram seeds, you will get a plant like this. Look at the shape of the leaves, children. Right? And different heights. Now this is a other type of plant. Those leaves are kind of different than the other leaves. Right, children? So it's very clear, right? Now we are going to learn the second characteristic of organisms. Do you remember what is the first characteristic? I hope so. The first characteristic we learned was growth. So the second characteristic we are going to learn today is nutrition. What is the meaning of nutrition, children? So it's very familiar. Every day your mothers would tell you to eat healthy food, eat correct nutrients, right? Eat nutritious food. What is the meaning of this? Why do we have to eat nutritious food or healthy food? That is because we need a lot of energy to do our activities, and we have to protect from diseases. That is why we have to eat the correct type of nutrients. So when it comes to this lesson, what is nutrition, children? Nutrition means satisfying the food requirements of organisms. Now we all know that all the organisms, they grow. That is the first characteristic. So in order to grow really well, we have to eat food. We need correct nutrition. Right, children? So satisfying the food requirements, the needs, satisfying the food requirements of organisms is called nutrition. Remember, children, based on the organisms, the way they take the nutrients, way they satisfy the nutrition, there are two different types of organisms. Autotrophic organisms, heterotrophic organisms. Are those words hard? Now these are two terms, children. These words are new terms. As children who learn science, you will have to learn new terms. You will have to get familiar with these new terms. Okay? Don't worry. I'm sure you will understand these things as we go on with the lesson. So autotrophic organisms, heterotrophic organisms. What is the meaning of autotrophic organisms? Autotrophic organisms means, children, some type of organisms are there. They can produce their own food. Can we produce our own food? What do you think? We can't, right? We have to eat something. Okay, we have to eat either plant-based food or animal-based food. We have to eat. What about plants? Have you ever seen someone else goes and feed plants? No. That is because plants can produce their own food. Therefore, plants, trees and other plants, they are coming under autotrophic organisms. Remember, children, when we learn these autotrophic organisms, so plants as autotrophic organisms, those plants are green plants. Okay, green plants are considered as autotrophic organisms. Only green plants can produce their own food. I will explain the reason later. And then heterotrophic organisms. Heterotrophic organisms means, children, that they cannot produce their own food. So if they can't produce their food, they have to depend on other organisms, right? They have to depend either plants or animals. Okay, so those type of organisms who depend on the other organisms are known as heterotrophic. So who are coming under heterotrophic organisms? Obviously, humans are coming under heterotrophic organisms. What are the other animals? All the other animals are coming under heterotrophic organisms. So mammals and insects, all of them are coming under heterotrophic organisms. Okay, you have seen butterflies also, they suck nectar from plants, flowers, right? So autotrophic organisms means the organisms who can produce their own food, right? So green plants are coming under autotrophic organisms, and heterotrophic organisms means the organisms or the living beings who cannot produce their own food. Therefore, they have to depend on the other organisms. So the animals are coming under heterotrophic organisms. So I hope it's very clear when we discuss about these plants and animals. That's one difference. Okay. So we will see into this further. Autotrophic organisms, we already learned this one. They produce food within themselves. They produce their own food. So green plants. Now this sentence is very important. Okay. Green plants use carbon dioxide. What is carbon dioxide? Carbon dioxide is a type of gas. Now we consider air or our atmosphere. It is made up of different gas. Now you already have learned about oxygen, what we take in when we inhale, right? And carbon dioxide, what we give out or exhale when we during breathing. So carbon dioxide is another factor. We will go through this again. Green plants use carbon dioxide. Now I'm underlining the important points. Carbon dioxide from air, soil water, and sunlight. Can you see there are 4 factors that I have underlined? Green plants is the first factor. Carbon dioxide. Number 2, from air, soil water. Third one, and sunlight. To produce food, it means all these 4 factors are essential to produce food by plants. It has to be green. Now green is very important. I explained earlier. So this process of plants producing their own food is known as photosynthesis. Photosynthesis, another new term that you have to memorize this, right? So photosynthesis. Now actually when you look into this term, you will later learn photo means light, synthesis means production. Using sunlight, food is produced by plants. That is why this is known as photosynthesis. You are going to learn about this photosynthesis in the upper grades, no and no. So remember children, 4 factors are essential for photosynthesis or for the production of food by plants. What are those 4 factors? The plants, green plants, that green color, carbon dioxide, soil water, and sunlight. So if it takes place with the presence of sunlight, in which part of the day the photosynthesis would take place? Yes, you are right. It takes place, this process takes place during the daytime. Right children? So during the night time, plants cannot produce food. Why? Because there's no sunlight. Right children? So remember the next important one. During the process of photosynthesis, plants absorb carbon dioxide. Now here carbon dioxide is one important factor for photosynthesis. Right children? So during this process, plants absorb carbon dioxide gas and release oxygen. Okay, so during the process, plants absorb carbon dioxide and plants release oxygen. I will use a certain equation. I will show this to you. You don't have to memorize this one. So we can simply say carbon dioxide gas plus here soil water. I will write water. Right children? So carbon dioxide and water, they react with each other and they produce food. What is the purpose of taking place of these process children? To produce food. And there's an extra product. Now the main product is food. As the extra product, oxygen is also released. Oxygen gas. So this process takes place with the presence of green color and sunlight. I'm going to sunlight here. Okay, and the green color. Do you know what we call this green color substance present in plants? Most of the time you see plant leaves, they are green color. Do you know why? There's this substance or special pigment called chlorophylls. Now that's a new term, right? Chlorophylls. Because of the presence of chlorophylls, plants are green in color. So actually green plants use carbon dioxide. What happens? Because of the presence of chlorophylls in plants, this photosynthesis takes place. That is why, so instead of green, now we can write chlorophylls. The other essential factor is chlorophylls. So what are the 4 factors affecting photosynthesis, children? Oh, 4 factors essential for photosynthesis or for the production of food in plants: carbon dioxide, water, sunlight and chlorophylls. Understand, children? This is the photosynthesis process, or this is the process of production of food by plants. Understand, right? So we are going to see this using a picture. Look at this, children. That's a beautiful picture. What is the meaning of this picture? We can see here sunlight mentioned here. Oxygen is mentioned here. Carbon dioxide mentioned. Water mentioned here. And we can see a green plant with green leaves. What is the meaning of this picture, children? Yes, this is photosynthesis. Using a picture, here it's clearly explained what photosynthesis is. So we are going to write it here. Photosynthesis. Right? Look at this one. Photosynthesis takes place with the presence of sunlight. Now, do you remember I explained you 4 factors affecting or 4 factors needed for photosynthesis? What are they? Number 1, sunlight. Look at this. Number 1, sunlight. So, without sunlight, plants cannot produce food. So, what is the time of the day that photosynthesis takes place, children? Yes, that is the daytime. During the night time, plants cannot produce food, or plants cannot do photosynthesis, right? So what is the second factor? I told you plants need carbon dioxide. Plants absorb carbon dioxide. So the second factor is carbon dioxide. Now children, plants can absorb carbon dioxide. How do they do that? From which part this carbon dioxide gas goes in? Remember children, if you take plant leaf, there are 2 sides, right? Upper surface and lower surface. If this is the plant leaf, right? Upper surface and lower surface, there are 2 sides. So if you observe this plant leaf under microscope very clearly, there are these tiny holes in the upper and lower surface both. So in the lower surface of the leaf, there are more holes than that of the upper surface. Right, children? These tiny holes are known as stomata. Now it's another new term. Stomata. These are microscopic. You can't see them if you take a leaf, and you can't observe them, these stomata or these tiny holes, with your naked eye. Right? So stomata are tiny holes present in the leaf surface of the plant leaf. Right, children? So carbon dioxide gas can enter the plant through the stomata. Understand? So through stomata, carbon dioxide gas can go in. So the third factor affecting photosynthesis is water. This water present in soil. Right? So you all can see these plant roots. From these plant roots, you can see these tiny hair-like structures arise. These hair-like structures are known as root hair. Root hair. So soil water can go into the plant through this root hair. Right? Water or soil water is absorbed by the root hair in plant roots. Understand? So from this root here, that it goes to the other parts of the plant. Right? So that is the third factor. What is the fourth factor affecting this photosynthesis process, children? Do you remember? What is that? Do you remember I mentioned that green color substance in plant leaves? What is the name given? Chlorophylls. Chlorophylls. Right? Chloro means green. So chlorophylls, that is the fourth factor. So chlorophyll is present in, most of the time present in plant leaves. So any other green colored plant, chlorophyll is present. Now you can see in this plant, even in the stem, this green color present. Right? So most of the time plant leaves contain these chlorophylls. Therefore, the place where this photosynthesis process takes place is in plant leaves. Understand, children? Apart from that, if any other part contains chlorophyll, so like this stem, even in those parts, this photosynthesis process can take place. Understand, children? So here we have 4 factors affecting photosynthesis. What are the factors? Sunlight, carbon dioxide gas in atmosphere or air, soil water, and chlorophylls, which means the green color substance present in plant leaves. And we all know that I explained you before, during this process carbon dioxide gas is absorbed by the leaves, and after the process when food is formed or food is produced, and what is the other substance produced, children? Oxygen gas. And oxygen gas released towards the environment. That is why you can see from these purple arrows, carbon dioxide goes in. Look at these arrows. Oxygen goes out of the plant. So what is the passage? What is the path where this oxygen can take in order to go out of the plant? The same path, stomata. These tiny holes in plant leaves. Right, children? So through stomata, carbon dioxide is absorbed and oxygen is released. Understand, children? So far we discussed about autotrophic organisms. Now we are discussing about the second characteristic of living beings, that is nutrition. So do you remember we discussed about 2 different types of organisms based on the way they take nutrients, based on the way they take their food, that is autotrophic organisms and heterotrophic organisms. So we discussed about the autotrophic organisms, which means the organisms or the living beings who can produce their own food. Now we are going to learn about heterotrophic organisms. So heterotrophic organisms. Do you remember what heterotrophic organisms are? I already explained to you. Heterotrophic organisms means the organisms that cannot produce their own food. So who cannot produce their own food? Animals, including us. We are also coming under animals, children. So animals cannot produce their own food. So how do they obtain their nutrients? They depend on plants. Now plants can produce food using sunlight. Therefore, plants are the actual producers. Plants are known as producers. They are the ones who produce food. Right, children? So animals depend on plants. Look at these 2 terms. Directly or indirectly. Therefore, animals are considered as heterotrophic. We know that heterotrophic organisms means animals or organisms who cannot produce their own food, not like plants. What is the meaning of this? Directly or indirectly, children? I will show you using a picture. Now we will see, we'll consider there's this rabbit. Okay. What do they eat, children? They eat plants. Let's see, grass, like undupilia. So, rabbits like herbivores like rabbits, they eat plants. So, when they eat plants, which it means they directly depend on these plants. They directly eat plants. Understand, children? That is why it say some animals, they depend on plants directly. Who depend on plants directly? Herbivores and omnivores as well. Now omnivores are the animals who eat both plants and meat, right? So herbivores, here I took an example as this rabbit as herbivore, right? So this rabbit or other herbivores as well, they directly eat plants. They directly depend on plants. That is because they can't produce their own food. They have to depend on the food produced by plants. Okay, so herbivores and omnivores, they directly depend on plants. What is the other one? They means animals, depend on plants directly or indirectly. We have the example for directly depending on plants here. What is the meaning of indirectly, children? Now see, this rabbit eats plants or grass. Let's say there's this, who is this? Right? There's this lion. It takes this rabbit. So this arrow shows to which direction the food goes into, right? So food or the energy produced by these plants go into the rabbit because this rabbit directly eats this plant. Understand? So now this rabbit has this energy. When this lion eats this rabbit, what happens? This energy present inside this rabbit, it goes into the lion. So what happens? This lion directly depends on the rabbit. But even though it directly depends on the rabbit, it indirectly depends on the plant as well. My children, because now this one takes energy by eating the rabbit, but rabbit takes energy by eating the plant. So plant goes into the rabbit. When this one depends on this rabbit, or when this lion depends this animal or the rabbit, what will happen? That entire energy taken by the plant goes into the lion. Therefore, even though this lion directly doesn't eat that plant, it doesn't eat plants, right? It indirectly depends on plants. Understand? So this is how we can say animals depend directly or indirectly on plants. Understand, children? Right. Look at these two pictures. A cow eating grass, where we can see this cow is directly depending on plants. And the lion eating an animal, I can see it looks like a deer or maybe a goat, not very clear, right? So this goat, or let's say goat or deer, it directly depends on plants, and this lion directly depends on this herbivore. At the same time, it indirectly depends on plants as well. Okay? So I hope it's very clear how animals directly and indirectly depend on plants. Okay? Now we are going to learn the third characteristic of living beings. Do you remember the first two characteristics of living beings that we learned? I hope so. We already learned about growth and we learned about nutrition. Now the third characteristic of living beings is movement. So all the living things can move. What is this movement called, children? So showing different movement is a common feature of living organisms. So these organisms can move in different ways, right? So apart from movement, some animals can move from place to place. What is that? What does it mean? Now see, I'm moving my arm, but I'm still standing here. I'm just moving my arm. Now I'm going to walk from here to there. There what happens? Earlier I only moved my arm, but my body was in the same place. But secondly what I did was, I walked from one place to another place. There what happened? Not only my arm, my entire body moved from one place to another place. So remember, children, most of the animals can move their entire body from one place to another place. So there's this special term we give to that type of movement. Okay, animals moving from one place to another place is called locomotion. So we see most of the animals, they show locomotion every time. Some animals can fly, some animals can swim, we can walk, and maybe we can run, okay? So we can move our entire body from one place to another place. Have you ever seen plants locomote? They cannot, right? Because they are fixed to one place. When it comes to locomotion, there are different types, different ways or different means that animals show this locomotion. So we will see into that. Look at these pictures, children. You can see a fish, a snake, and here you can see horses, birds, and humans and dogs. What are they doing? They are moving. Now this fish is swimming. Okay? This snake is creeping. Horses are running. Likewise, they are moving their body from one place to another place. So remember, children, when we discuss about locomotion. Now what is locomotion again? Locomotion means animals or organisms moving their entire body from one place to another place. Right? So when we discuss about this locomotion, these animals or these organisms, they have different appendages in order to locomote, in order to move the entire body from one place to another place. What is the meaning of appendages, children? Appendages means body parts. Okay, different body parts are called appendages. So we'll look into each example here. We can see this fish is swimming. So what are the appendages they have to help with this swimming? They have, you can see, fins. Okay, they have fins. Fins help for swimming. Instead of these fins, children, you all know that this fish, they have this special shape in their body. Okay, this shape is known as streamline shape. It looks like a bundle shape. Okay, the shape is known as streamline shape. Streamline shape. So this special shape helps these fish and other sea creatures or aquatic animals in order to move their body through water currents. This is not an appendage, but it's a certain shape of the body. So what are the appendages these fish have in order to swim? Fins. Okay. And we'll go to the second one. Snakes, they don't have any appendage. They don't have legs, so they don't have fins. They don't have wings. So how do they move? You all know that these snakes or other reptiles, they have scales. With the help of the scales, they can creep, they can move. Therefore, appendages, we will write scales. Their skin. Here you can see running. These horses are running, and this human and two dogs are walking. So what are the appendages they have? What helps for them to run and walk? They are legs. So here the appendages are legs. Here birds are flying. How do they fly? Using their wings. Right, children? So their appendages that helps with flying is or moving is or locomotion is their wings. So it's very clear that animals can locomote or animals can move their entire body from one place to another place, and there are different appendages, there are different body parts which help them to move or to locomote. Children, is there any other animal who cannot move or who cannot locomote from one place to another place, or who cannot move their entire body from one place to another place? We'll see that. What is two creatures, children? They look like plants. Like this one actually looks like a flower, isn't it? Right? Even this also looks a bit like a flower. What are they? Are they plants? Children, these are animals. They look like plants. Okay, this actually looks like a flower, right? These are actually animals. Okay, this is sea anemone. This one is known as sea anemone, and these are coral polyps. Now, if you have watched videos, right, you must have seen these type of creatures. Okay, children, they are actually animals, but the thing is they cannot move their entire body from one place to another place. What is the reason, children? Because throughout their entire lifetime, they are fixed to a surface. They are fixed to a surface. So because they cannot move and they spend their entire life in the same place, they are known as that they are living a sedentary life. Sedentary life. Sedentary means they are fixed to the same place. They cannot move from one place to another place throughout the entire life. They are in the same place. So can they move at all? They show different types of movements. Now you can see these arm-like structures in the sea anemone. These arm-like structures are known as tentacles. They can move these arm-like structures. Okay, even coral polyps being in the same place, they can show different types of movements, but they don't move the entire body from one place to another place. Understand? So if they can't move from one place to another place, how do they eat? How do they find their food? Now let's say that if small other fish or any other sea creatures, when they swim near these sea anemone, what it does is it moves its arm-like structures and it can catch those tiny animals, and mouth is somewhere here. Here you can't see it, but somewhere here. It actually using these arm-like tentacles, it can direct that food, those small fish, into its mouth. So that's how they eat food. Understand? That's how they fulfill their nutritional needs. So hope it's very clear. So we learned about these movements of animals. So most of the animals can move the entire body from one place to another place. But there are some animals, they cannot move the entire body, but they show other types of movements. Right? So they can't move the entire body because they are fixed to a surface. They are living a sedentary life. So we will see about plants now. Children, when we look into plants, can plants move their entire body from one place to another place? They cannot. We all know that they are fixed to soil or any other surface or any other substrate throughout their lifetime. Therefore, obviously, plants cannot move the entire body, or plants do not show locomotion. What about the other movements, children? Now, what is this plant? This is known as mimosa or touch me not. You must have seen this plant. This is a very common plant. Okay. So if you see this plant, have you ever touched a mimosa leaf? Right? A mimosa plant. What happens when you touch it? It folds inwards. These plant leaves are like this, made up of tiny leaflets. Children, what happens if you touch this leaf? Here, like when you want, it's not touched, they present like this. If you touch it, what will happen? They fold inwards. This is known as a sleeping movement, children. Okay, that is because this is a type of movement present in plants. Understand? So when a mimosa plant is touched, the leaves of the mimosa plant shows a sleeping movement. Now, sleeping movement is a type of movement shown by plants. Not only these mimosa plant, there are other plants like Albizia, Sesbania. Sesbania means katirumurunga plant, what we eat, like green leaf, right? And tamarind, those leaves show sleeping movements, but not when touched during the evening. Okay, it depends on the intensity of sunlight. Okay. So, mimosa plant and these type of Albizia, Sesbania plants, tamarind plants, they show sleeping movements. What is the sleeping movement now? These leaves, now here, it's a tiny, made up of tiny leaflets. These leaves, they fold inwards and they just shrink. Okay, that is known as the sleeping movements. So apart from these type of sleeping movements, do plants show other movements, children? So when we look into a plant, it's very difficult, children, to observe whether it shows other than these sleeping movements like this. It's very difficult to observe that a certain plant moves, show different types of movements. Okay, but you can do this simple experiment at home. you can pick a potted plant. Okay, you can take a potted plant from outside and you have to take it in. You place it near a window. You have to place it near a window. Okay, so you will see after about 1 week, 2 weeks, you will see. Now earlier you will observe the plant grows like this. What you all are going to do is, you are going to take this inside the house and you are going to place it near the window. So when you place it near the window, what happens? It gets sunlight only from outside, only from one direction. So you will see after about 1-2 weeks, this plant bends towards the window or sunlight. Understand? So after about 1 week, this bends. Okay, children. Now this is also a type of movement. But the thing is, this type of movement, in order to observe this, it takes time. You cannot observe this kind of movements right away. Understand? So this is also coming under movement in plants. So although plants show many other movements, they cannot be observed. This is important. They cannot be observed during a short period of time. Not like animals. Now when animals move their body parts or when animals locomote from one place to another place, it can be easily observed at the same time. But plant movement, apart from those mimosa plant, when you touch, at the same time you can see the movements, right? But this type of movement you can't observe right away. It takes time. Okay, I hope you will do this experiment at home. This is a really easy one. Okay, children. So what will happen? After about a few weeks, probably let's say 2 weeks, after about 2 weeks, you will clearly see that this one bends. So if you keep this outside again, what will happen? It again grows normally as before. Understand, children? So I hope it's very clear when it comes to these plants. They don't locomote, but at the same time they show other types of movements. Okay. What about the non-living things? Now we know that things in the environment, there are two things, living things and non-living things. We are discussing about the characteristics of these living things. Okay. What about the non-living things? Now we discussed about the movement. Can non-living things move? They cannot move by their own, but with a special force they can move. Non-living things do not move on their own. Non-living things will move only when an external force is applied. Let's say we have a table here. We want to move this table. We want to drag this from one place to another place. Okay. Will this move by its own? No. But if you push it from one side, now here child is pushing this one. Okay. If this one pushes this to one side, it will move to one direction, to this side. So what is he doing? He is applying a force, or this is known as an external force. Okay, an outsider is applying a force. This is an external force. Only when an external force is applied, non-living things like this table, they will move. Understand, children? So I hope it's very clear. Living things or living beings show different types of movements, but non-living things, they do not move by their own, right?